Hey there, it's Dr. Tracy Schroyer, and I had my management and organizational behavior class this morning at Ohio Dominican University, BUS 240, and I wanted to share with you some of the things that we did over the last couple days and just share that with you of what's going on in the classroom of a university and a business class. So Monday and today we started into a chapter on strategic management, and what I had done is I laid out 7 pieces of the process for strategic management. And I'm not going to go into these heavily, but the first one, strategic analysis, was doing a SWOT analysis. For those of you who have not heard of this, it's a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Strengths and weaknesses are internal typically to the organization. Opportunities and threats are external. The other 2 tools that you can use, and not to say you need to use all of these tools, but they're available, is the PESTLE framework and then Porter's 5 forces. And these 2 here are more external environment to the organization and figuring out like what are some of those things that could impact the organization and how do you make sure that you're prepared and you have awareness of what those could be. We then moved into the vision and mission for the organization. Students on Monday they were assigned an industry, they were in a small group, they had an industry, and they had to come up with the company name, a vision or the why for the organization, a strategy, whether they were going to be a cost leader or a differentiator, and then also identify a product. And I'll share with you why they had to identify one of their products here in a moment. But then we also talked about mission and what does the mission do from there, of really talking about how are you going to achieve your vision. Then we moved on to corporate strategy. They looked at, based on what they did for the company that they created, are they looking to grow, maintain, or shrink? And we talked about what are some of the positives and negatives of each of those and why might somebody choose to do that. We also talked about the BCG matrix, or the Boston Consulting Group matrix, and this goes on, it's a 2x2, and it looks at market growth and market share. And for these, we plot the products into whether they're a question mark, a star, a dog, or a cash cow. And so that is why each of their teams had to come up with a product and then kind of figure out where does it fall in this. And we talked a little bit more in detail about what those were. The next thing that we touched upon was business strategies. So now that they had their corporate strategy, they really wanted to break this down a little bit more. And this was today's class. And we leveraged ChatGPT, AI tools, Gemini, things like that, to dig a little bit deeper into this and give us some ideas. So we talked about, typically this is the strategic level, is that top level manager, which you can see on this right here, levels of management. And the tactical is the what they're going to do. Mid-level managers typically look at that. And then frontline is that operational, how are they going to do it? So we leveraged AI to look at what are some business strategies at these different levels for these different type of managers. And students were surprised at how much information was spit out. And then we also started to have the conversation of, is this always right? Should a business take this, copy paste and use it? Or, what are some of the challenges with doing that, or with thinking about everything that comes out of AI is exactly what you need? And what are some of the implications if you use exactly what you have? We also narrowed it down to say, like, if we had to pick one for each of these due to time and it was spitting out so much information. The next thing is, we talked about, now that you have these strategies, creating a plan. So you need to, using the acronym SMART goals, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. What are some SMART goals? And so we picked one for each level that we had, the level of management here. And then we also asked ChatGPT to come up with a high level plan for each level and kind of see what are some of those things that you would need to do there. The next step was implementing. So when you go to implement, what we ended up leveraging AI for in this instance was, hey, can you come up with a dashboard of some of the things that we want to track to show our progress towards those goals and strategies that we set up. And then we also talked about, for implementing, on the right here, let's see if I can point to it right here, we talked about what are some of those things that came up with as to what do we want to track. These were just a few of those. So portfolio expansion, revenue, risk and compliance indicators, key projects and milestones, and marketing campaigns kind of thing. From there, after they implement, we talked about how important it is to measure and evaluate, and how different levels of management in the organization likely do that, and how things are looked at. And we talked about in those meetings or in those reviews, it's looking at the dashboards, looking at the progress. You could also use things like customer satisfaction surveys or employee opinion surveys to really measure and evaluate how is all of this going that you laid out, because it's not going to be all external to the organization. Some of it is going to be internal types of strategies too. And then we also talked about benchmarking and looking up what does that concept mean and what might you do when you benchmark. So that is some of the content just at a high level for you of what we covered about strategic management in my management and organizational behavior class. Would love to know how you use any of the concepts that I talked about in this video in the work that you do in industry. Would love to be able to share that with my students. Thanks and have a great day.